In the winters of World War II, soldiers learned quickly that cold could cripple faster than gunfire. From the Eastern Front to the Ardennes, frostbite sidelined divisions, ended campaigns and forced armies to rethink something as basic as boots. Early in the war, standard-issue leather boots failed catastrophically in deep cold. Feet sweated during movement, froze during rest, and circulation collapsed inside rigid leather shells. What followed was a quiet revolution in foot survival, driven not by technology alone, but by a deceptively simple hack that turned the problem upside down. This wasn't about thicker leather or tighter lacing. It was about accepting moisture, managing air, and letting the foot work the way nature intended. Once soldiers adopted it, frostbite rates dropped sharply. When they ignored it, casualties soared. The breakthrough came when armies realized insulation mattered more than waterproofing. The solution, emerged in multiple theatres at once. Removable felt or wool liners inside oversized boots. Instead of sealing moisture away, the system actually absorbed it. Thick felt trapped air, stayed warm even when damp, and could be dried separately. The boot became a shell. The liner became the insulation. The real hack, if you like, was rotating insulation instead of rotating boots. What most modern accounts miss is how these systems were used day to day. Soldiers were issued multiple liners, not multiple boots. At rest, liners were pulled out and dried against the body, near a stove or inside a sleeping bag. The shell boots stayed cold and rigid. The warmth lived in the liner. This meant a soldier could march all day, swap damp liners for dry ones at night, and keep circulation intact. Feet stayed warm, not because they were sealed, but because they were dry enough and surrounded by dead airspace. The idea seems obvious now, but at the time it contradicted everything armies believed about footwear. Air circulation inside the boot mattered more than tight fit. One of the most counterintuitive lessons of the Second World War cold warfare was that tight boots cause frostbite faster than loose ones. Tight leather restricted blood flow and compressed insulation. Oversized boots allowed toes to move, blood to circulate, and air pockets to form. Felt liners filled the space without strangling the foot. Soldiers were instructed to avoid overlacing and to remove insoles if circulation suffered. Warmth came from blood flow first, insulation second. This principle still holds today, whether you are hiking in winter or working outdoors for long hours. The materials were primitive but perfectly suited to the job. Felt, wool and canvas performed better than many early synthetics because they retained insulating value when wet. Felt fibers trap air even when saturated. Wool continues to insulate while absorbing moisture away from skin. Leather shells blocked wind and external moisture, but were never relied upon for warmth. That division of labour is what modern single-piece boots often get wrong. The World War II boot hack worked because each material did one job well instead of pretending to do everything. Soldiers learned quickly that neglecting the system invited disaster. Accounts from the Eastern Front describe units ignoring liner rotation due to fatigue or discipline failures. Frostbite followed within days. Commanders eventually enforced foot care routines as strictly as weapon maintenance. Feet were inspected, liners were dried, socks were changed. Those who followed the routine stayed functional. Those who did not became casualties without ever seeing the enemy. This wasn't comfort culture, it was cold math. The method faded after the war for reasons unrelated to performance. Post-war armies shifted toward convenience, mass production, and simplified logistics. Integrated boots required less training and fewer components. Cold weather specialization was treated as niche rather than necessity. Civilian footwear followed the same path. Waterproof membranes promised all-in-one solutions. Many worked well in mild cold, but extreme conditions still punished trapped moisture the same way they did in 1941. The old system quietly persisted among Arctic workers, hunters, and indigenous communities who, never stopped rotating insulation. The principle still applies wherever cold and moisture coexist. You don't need wartime boots to apply this knowledge. The lesson really is separation and rotation. Keep insulation removable. Allow moisture to escape skin. Preserve circulation. Prioritize airspace over tightness. Modern winter workers often rediscover this by accident, using removable liners, vapor barriers, or spare socks rotated throughout the day. The WWT hack explains why it works. Cold defeats systems that try to be clever. It respects systems that are honest. This was not a trick, but a lesson written in frostbitten toes. World War II forced armies to relearn truths humans already knew. Warmth comes from blood air and dryness in that order. The boot hack that outsmarted frostbite did not rely on advanced materials. It relied on understanding the body and respecting physics. That is why it still works today.